Your soulmate's final love letter was just found. Read it before tomorrow. My beloved child, don't skip, stay till the end, because something huge is waiting, because the love letter you were never supposed to find has finally reached you. Not by accident. Not at an ordinary moment. It has arrived when your heart is finally ready to understand what was hidden between every silence, every unanswered question, and every strange feeling that someone, somewhere, was thinking about you. Your soulmate carried words they could never bring themselves to say, and those words reveal something you may never have expected. Don't skip. What you are about to hear changes the meaning of everything you thought you knew about this connection. The letter begins with one breathtaking confession: I tried to move forward, but some part of me kept returning to you. And that is only the first line. Something huge is waiting for you. But the next words are where everything shifts. Your soulmate admits there was a moment when they almost reached out. They had the words ready. They imagined what they would say, how you might respond, and whether one honest conversation could finally close the distance between two hearts that somehow kept remembering each other. Yet they stopped. Not because the feeling disappeared, but because it became too meaningful to express carelessly. Stay till the end, because the final lines of this letter contain the revelation they protected for longer than you realize. They wrote, "You were never simply a chapter one could close. You became the question my heart kept asking when everything around me went quiet." Don't skip, because what comes next explains why this letter was meant to be found before tomorrow. Then comes the sentence they rewrote again and again, because even they knew how powerful it was. If these words ever reach you, know that there was something I finally understood too late. I wasn't waiting for the perfect moment. I was waiting until I became brave enough to tell you the truth. And beneath that sentence is the beginning of the final confession. The confession that turns this from an ordinary love letter into something unforgettable. Your soulmate says there is one memory of you they have never been able to release, one detail they still remember with impossible clarity, and one truth they would choose differently if life gave them another chance. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next part of this letter reveals exactly what that memory is, and why tomorrow matters more than you think. There is one detail your soulmate could never erase from their heart, and it is far smaller than you might imagine. It wasn't a grand moment. It wasn't something everyone noticed. It was the way you made an ordinary moment feel unforgettable without even trying. In the letter, they confess, "You probably don't remember it, but I do. There was a moment when you looked at me as if the entire world had gone quiet, and something inside me knew I would remember that feeling for a very long time." Don't skip, because that memory is connected to the reason they stayed silent. They weren't questioning whether the connection was real. They were wondering whether they were ready for something that felt deeper than anything they had known before. And then comes the line they almost removed from the letter: "I kept pretending time would make you easier to forget, but time only showed me how rare you were." Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. What makes the letter even more surprising is what they admit next. There were moments when they wondered whether you could somehow feel their absence too. Whether you ever stopped in the middle of an ordinary day and suddenly remembered them. Whether a familiar song, a quiet evening, or a random memory brought back something you thought had already faded. They write, I wanted to know whether some invisible part of our story was still unfinished, because no matter how much life changed around me, there was always a place in my thoughts where you remained exactly the same. Don't skip. The next confession is the one they were most afraid to write. They reveal that if they could return to one moment, they wouldn't make some dramatic speech. They would simply stay a little longer. They would say the words they swallowed. They would stop pretending there would always be another opportunity. Because now they understand something they didn't understand then. Sometimes the most important person enters your life quietly, and you recognize their importance only after the moment has passed. And now the letter reaches the line that explains why tomorrow matters. Your soulmate writes, "If you are hearing these words before tomorrow, then there is still something I need you to understand before you close this chapter in your heart. Stay till the end, because the final pages do not contain the goodbye you might expect. They contain a truth that changes the entire meaning of the letter." Your soulmate wasn't writing because they had stopped believing in this connection. They were writing because they finally understood what the connection taught them about love, timing, and the one person their heart kept returning to. Then comes a sentence so simple that it changes everything. "If I ever get one honest chance to speak from my heart, I already know exactly what I will say." Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because what they plan to say is revealed next, and those words may completely change what you thought this final love letter meant. Now the letter reaches the words your soulmate kept hidden longer than anything else. "If I ever stand before you again, I won't waste that moment pretending you meant less to me than you did." Don't skip, because this is where the entire letter changes. They confess that every time they imagined speaking to you again, they rehearsed complicated explanations, but eventually realized the truth required only a few words: you mattered. You still matter. And I wish I had been brave enough to show you when I had the chance. But there is another sentence underneath it, written as though they hesitated before putting it on the page. "What I felt wasn't powerful because it was perfect. It was powerful because even after everything changed, something about you remained unforgettable. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next confession reveals what your soulmate secretly hoped would happen if this letter ever reached you." Then comes the revelation they never expected themselves to admit. Your soulmate didn't want this letter to convince you to chase the past. They wanted you to finally know what the silence could never explain. "I wondered so many times whether you thought I simply stopped caring," they write. "The truth is, I cared enough that I became afraid of saying the wrong thing and losing the possibility of ever making things right." Don't skip, because what follows is even bigger. They reveal that somewhere inside them, they always imagined one unexpected moment when your paths might cross again, not because destiny owed them anything, but because there were words between you that never received their ending. They imagined seeing you, recognizing that familiar feeling instantly, and finally saying what should have been said long ago. And then they confess, "If that moment ever arrives, I don't want to return as the person who stayed silent. I want to arrive as someone finally capable of being completely honest." But the final lines on this page contain the twist that makes everything before it feel different. Your soulmate writes, "There is one last thing I have never told you, and perhaps it is the only reason I finished this letter at all. Stay till the end, because this is not where the story closes. This is where the deepest secret begins." They reveal that before writing the final page, they asked themselves one question: if they knew they had only one opportunity to tell you exactly what lived inside their heart, what would they refuse to leave unsaid? Their answer surprised even them. It wasn't about regret. It wasn't about the distance. It wasn't even about everything that could have happened differently. It was about you, and the one extraordinary realization they reached only after losing the comfort of believing there would always be more time. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because the final page reveals that realization, and once you hear it, every line of this letter will suddenly make sense. The final page begins with a sentence your soulmate could barely bring themselves to write: I finally understand why my heart kept returning to you. Don't skip, because this is the revelation every previous line was leading toward. They explain that it wasn't simply the memories, the unanswered questions, or the moments they wished they could relive. It was the person they became whenever you were close, the version of themselves that felt understood without needing to explain everything. They write, you showed me that real love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, becomes part of you, and only later do you realize how deeply it changed you. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because beneath those words is the confession they saved for last. I spent so much time wondering whether I could find that feeling somewhere else, until I understood I wasn't searching for another feeling. I was remembering you. But there is one more truth, and this is where the meaning of before tomorrow finally becomes clear. Your soulmate writes, tomorrow represents everything we keep believing we have unlimited time to say. Tomorrow is where we send the words we were afraid to send today. Tomorrow is where we promise ourselves we will finally become honest. But some feelings deserve to be understood now. Don't skip, because their next sentence changes this letter from a story about yesterday into a message about what truly matters. If you ever wondered whether you were easy to forget, you weren't. If you wondered whether what we shared meant something, it did. And if you wondered whether there were words I wished I had said, there were more than you could ever know. Suddenly, every silence in the letter has an answer. Every unfinished sentence has meaning. Every memory they protected was pointing toward this exact confession. And then, at the very bottom of the page, comes the line they wanted you to remember after everything else faded: you were never just someone I once knew. You became the person who taught my heart what it feels like to recognize something rare. Stay till the end, because even now, the letter has one final surprise. Under that sentence, almost like a message written only for the person who stayed long enough to find it, are these words: whatever happens tomorrow, I needed this truth to exist somewhere today. I loved the way your presence changed ordinary moments. I loved the way remembering you could make years feel like seconds. And if our paths ever meet again, I won't hide behind silence. I will simply look at you and finally tell you what this entire letter was trying to say. Meeting you became one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments my heart never learned to treat as ordinary. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is still one sealed line beneath the letter, and what it says changes the ending completely. The sealed line was never meant to be opened casually, because your soulmate saved their most powerful truth for the person willing to stay until the very end. If you are reading this now, there is something I need you to know. I never wanted our last memory to become our final meaning. Don't skip. Those words change everything. All this time, You may have thought this letter was about an ending, but your soulmate was trying to leave behind something completely different, the truth they could no longer keep inside. They write, "There were countless moments when I almost convinced myself that what I felt would disappear. Then one ordinary memory of you would return, and suddenly I understood that some people don't remain in your heart because you refuse to move forward. They remain because knowing them changed something permanent inside you. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next line reveals the one question your soulmate secretly wished they could ask you face to face." They write, "If life placed us in the same room one more time, and neither of us had to pretend anymore, would you recognize what I never knew how to say?" Don't skip, because they weren't asking whether you remembered every detail. They were wondering whether you remembered the feeling, the strange familiarity, the effortless moments, the conversations that seemed too short, and the silence that somehow said more than words. Then comes the confession that makes the title of this letter finally hit differently. I called this my final love letter because I refuse to keep rewriting the same truth in my head. These words deserve to exist outside my imagination. And suddenly, final doesn't mean love disappeared. It means hiding it ends here. The pretending ends here. The endless rehearsing ends here. Stay till the end, because one final sentence remains, and it carries everything they couldn't fit into the rest of the letter. At the very bottom, your soulmate writes, "Before tomorrow arrives, remember this: never measure your worth by the silence of someone who struggled to find the right words. There are things people feel deeply long before they learn how to express them, and you became one of those truths for me." But then, underneath their signature, there is a tiny handwritten message that almost looks like it was added at the last possible second. "If somehow these words ever find you, I hope you understand that meeting you was never ordinary to me." That is the final revelation. Not a promise about what tomorrow must bring. Not a prediction about what happens next. Something far more meaningful. Confirmation that the moments you thought might have been insignificant could have meant far more than you realized. Something huge was waiting for you at the end, and now you know what it was. The letter wasn't asking you to live in yesterday. It was reminding you that genuine love can leave behind something time cannot easily erase, the knowledge that, for one unforgettable chapter, your existence meant something extraordinary to another heart. Just when you thought the final line had revealed everything, there was one last folded page hidden behind the letter, and the first sentence changes the meaning of everything you have heard. "There is something I didn't tell you because I needed to understand it myself first." Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate admits that for the longest time, they believed the hardest part was missing you. But they eventually discovered something deeper. The hardest part was realizing how many ordinary moments had become meaningful simply because you had once been part of them. A familiar place could suddenly bring back your presence. A quiet evening could return an old conversation. A simple thought could unlock a memory they believed time had already carried away. And then they write, "That is when I understood, you didn't remain in my memory because I was trapped in yesterday. You remained because meeting you taught me something about love that I could never unlearn." But the next sentence is the one they circled twice, because it contains a revelation they almost kept hidden forever. Here is what they finally confessed: "I used to wonder why our story entered my life if everything wasn't going to happen exactly as I imagined. Then I realized perhaps some connections arrive before we understand what they are trying to teach us. Don't skip, because this is where their final letter becomes intensely personal. Your soulmate says you taught them that love cannot survive forever on unspoken words. That timing matters. That honesty matters. That someone extraordinary should never be treated as though there will always be another opportunity to tell them what they mean. They write, if I could return to those moments, I wouldn't try to make everything perfect. I would simply be present. I would listen longer. I would speak sooner. I would stop assuming tomorrow would always be available for the words my heart already knew today. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because beneath that confession they left one question unanswered, a question that appears to have been written directly to you. And that question reads, if you knew how deeply you could remain in someone's heart without realizing it, would you see yourself differently? Don't skip. Your soulmate wanted you to understand that this letter was never supposed to make you wait for someone, chase anyone, or put your life on hold. It was meant to reveal something bigger. Your presence can matter more than you ever get to witness. They finished the hidden page with words they apparently could not leave unwritten. If tomorrow gives us another chapter, I will meet it with honesty. If life takes us in different directions, I will still be grateful that somewhere in this enormous world, I once met someone who made ordinary moments feel impossible to forget. Stay till the end, because even this hidden page is not the final secret. There is one last sentence written on the back, only 7 words long, and your soulmate believed those 7 words explained the entire letter better than everything else they had written. Those 7 words were written so quietly that they could have been missed. My heart recognized you before I understood. Don't skip, because those words are not the ending, they unlock the deepest part of the letter. Your soulmate explains that they spent too long trying to understand something their heart had already felt. Why did your presence feel different? Why did certain conversations remain vivid long after they ended? Why could one memory of you suddenly make an ordinary day feel completely different? They finally write, I kept searching for a complicated explanation until I realized the truth was simple. Some people enter your life and become memories. Others enter your life and change the way you understand connection itself. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is one final discovery connected to those 7 words, and it reveals why your soulmate never wanted this letter to disappear. Hidden beneath that sentence was a date, not explained, not circled, just written beside a tiny message, the day I finally stopped pretending. Don't skip, because what happened on that day was not what you might expect. There was no dramatic reunion. No extraordinary event. Your soulmate simply sat alone and admitted the truth they had avoided for too long. They could appreciate what you meant without running from it. They write, that day I stopped asking whether I should have felt differently. I stopped trying to reduce something meaningful into something ordinary. I accepted that you mattered to me, and somehow that honesty brought peace. Then comes the line that makes the entire letter feel different. Maybe I was never supposed to erase you. Maybe I was supposed to understand why meeting you changed me. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The next revelation is the closest they ever came to saying exactly what they would tell you if you suddenly appeared before them. They write, I wouldn't ask you to return to yesterday. I wouldn't ask you to become who you were back then. I would look at who you are now and tell you that I hope life has been gentle with your dreams. I hope you discovered how valuable your heart is. And I hope somewhere along the way, you realized that being unforgettable was never something you had to prove. Don't skip, because underneath those words comes another line that was clearly added after the letter was finished, and if our paths ever cross again, I hope we recognize each other not by the past, but by the honesty we finally learned. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate left one final envelope with no name on it, only 4 mysterious words across the front: open this before tomorrow. And inside that envelope is the one truth they still haven't revealed. Inside that final envelope was something completely unexpected, not another long letter, but a single page carrying the words your soulmate had been trying to reach from the very beginning. Before tomorrow comes, I need you to know what I finally understood about us. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and this is where every hidden sentence finally connects. Your soulmate writes, "For so long, I thought the most important question was whether our paths would ever cross again. I was wrong. The real question was whether I would ever become honest enough to admit what meeting you meant to me." Then comes the confession they saved for this exact page: you were the person who made me realize that the deepest connections are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes they are hidden inside the moments nobody else would notice, the conversations you replay years later, the laughter you unexpectedly remember, the feeling of being understood without having to explain yourself. Don't skip, because the next line reveals why this letter had to reach you before tomorrow. Your soulmate continues, "Tomorrow, life will keep moving. New moments will arrive. New doors will open. But before another day begins, I wanted one truth to exist somewhere outside my heart: you mattered more than my silence ever showed. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you." They admit that silence may have made everything look smaller than it really was, but inside them, the story was completely different. There were words I almost said. Questions I almost asked. Moments when I almost turned around and chose honesty instead of hesitation. And if I learned anything from losing those moments, it is this: never assume someone knows what they mean to you simply because you feel it deeply. Then the handwriting suddenly changes, as though these next words were written much later. If you ever questioned whether our connection existed only in your imagination, I wish you could have seen everything I never managed to say. Don't skip. Because underneath that sentence is the final revelation, the one your soulmate apparently considered too important to hide inside another metaphor. They write, "I cannot promise what tomorrow holds, but I can finally tell the truth about yesterday. Meeting you became one of the most meaningful surprises of my life." And then comes the sentence that closes every unanswered question this letter carried: "If life ever gives us another conversation, I will not spend it hiding what I already know." Stay till the end, because something huge has been waiting for you inside these final words. Your soulmate was never asking you to stop your life and wait. They were leaving you something far more powerful: the certainty that genuine connection can matter even when its deepest meaning was never spoken at the right time. At the bottom of the page, they leave one last message: walk into tomorrow knowing this: somewhere in your story, your presence became unforgettable to someone. And if our paths ever meet again, there will be no unfinished sentence left between us. But just beneath those words is a final handwritten note, almost impossible to notice. There is still one thing I need to tell you. And that one thing changes everything that comes next. That final handwritten note continues with the confession your soulmate had been avoiding through every page. The one thing I still need to tell you is that I finally understand what I was truly afraid of losing. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They weren't afraid only of losing a relationship, a possibility, or even another conversation. They were afraid that one day you would disappear completely from their world without ever knowing how deeply your presence had mattered. I could accept that life might take us in different directions, they write, but I couldn't accept the thought that you might spend your life believing you were forgettable to me. And then comes a startling admission. There was one particular moment when your soulmate almost told you everything. They remember where they were, what they wanted to say, and the exact instant hesitation won. I watched the moment pass while telling myself there would be another one, they confess. That became the moment I remembered most. Don't skip, because what they reveal about that missed opportunity explains why this final letter exists at all. What they wanted to say that day was surprisingly simple. You make something inside me feel understood. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate says those words frightened them precisely because they were real. They had experienced attraction before. They had experienced excitement before. But being deeply seen felt different. Around you, I noticed parts of myself I had forgotten, the letter continues. You made ordinary conversations feel important because I wasn't performing. I was simply there, and somehow that felt rare. Then they reveal something even more unexpected. They sometimes wondered whether you noticed their hesitation. Whether you could see the words forming before they disappeared behind another ordinary sentence. Whether you ever walked away feeling that something important had almost been said. Don't skip. Because they finally answer the question this entire letter has been building toward. If they were given that exact moment again, would they choose differently? Their answer is immediate. Yes. I would choose honesty before the moment had the chance to become a memory. And then the letter becomes quieter, almost as if your soulmate knew the final revelation didn't need dramatic words. If tomorrow changes everything, I want today to carry the truth. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you in the last few lines. They write, I don't know where life will take either of us. I don't know whether another conversation is waiting somewhere ahead. But I know this, knowing you changed the way I understand what it means for someone to matter. Then, beneath that sentence, there is a final line written separately from everything else. If we meet again, ask me what I remembered. Don't skip, because beside those words is a tiny mark leading to the back of the page. And there, your soulmate finally reveals the memory they protected above every other memory, the one moment they say made them realize this connection was never ordinary. The memory they protected above everything else wasn't a grand event, it was one quiet moment when you had no idea they were paying attention. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate writes, you smiled without trying to impress anyone, and for a few seconds I forgot everything I had planned to say. That tiny moment stayed with them because it revealed something they couldn't explain then. They weren't drawn only to what you said or how you looked, they were drawn to the feeling of seeing you completely unguarded, simply being yourself. That was when something inside me whispered that you were different. The letter continues. I ignored it because recognizing something rare can be frightening when you don't know what to do with it. And suddenly the entire letter makes sense. Every hesitation, every unfinished sentence, every memory they carried was connected to one realization they kept postponing: you had become meaningful before they were ready to admit how meaningful. But then comes the sentence that turns this final love letter into something much bigger than a confession about the past. I don't want my silence to become the voice you remember me by. Don't skip, because your soulmate finally says what they would tell you if you were standing in front of them right now. I would tell you that you never needed to become more extraordinary for me to notice you. I noticed the little things. I noticed your kindness when nobody was watching. I noticed the way your presence could make an ordinary moment feel lighter. I noticed how quickly time seemed to move whenever I wanted it to slow down. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because they admit there was one realization that arrived only after distance gave them enough silence to understand it. Sometimes you don't recognize the importance of a moment while you are living it. Sometimes you understand its value only when you would give anything to experience 5 more minutes of it. And now your soulmate reaches the words they wanted this entire letter to leave inside your heart. Before tomorrow begins, please remember that our unfinished story never meant our moments were meaningless. Don't skip. They continue, whatever tomorrow becomes, I refuse to let yesterday remain misunderstood. You mattered to me. You changed me. And somewhere between everything I said and everything I was too hesitant to say, my heart had already chosen the truth. Then comes one final sentence, written larger than everything around it: if another moment ever finds us, I will recognize it this time. Stay till the end, because something huge is still waiting for you. At the bottom of the page, beneath what appears to be the ending, your soulmate left one last instruction: turn the letter over only when you are ready for the truth I could never say aloud. And when the page turns, there are only 3 lines waiting. 3 lines that reveal why this was called their final love letter, and why everything after this moment can never be understood the same way again.